All right, let's take a look at adding the JSHarmony CMS to a Laravel application, this time using the router with page objects integration method. So there are two parts to this. First, we're going to generate the CMS files and publish them to a public content folder inside of the Laravel app. And then we'll add a router that will take those content files and render them into a Laravel view template. So let's get started. First thing we'll do in our Laravel app, in our public folder, let's add a new subfolder for our CMS content. We'll just call it content. And now we'll need to create a template for our CMS pages. Under app view, we have two layouts in this demo site here. There's an app layout, which is for logged in users. So it's this one that has the nice header, and a guest layout, which doesn't. Since we're using the router with page objects integration method, we can use the template with the dynamic header. So we'll go ahead and set one up for the app layout. We'll go into our resources and views folder, add a new subfolder for our templates, and we'll add a file here, call it app.blade.php. And for now, we'll just put the test content into it to see if that's going to work. In our web.php file, we will add a route. And when you go to that, it looks like it's rendering. So back in our template, let's add the layout tag to the top and bottom. Great. Looks like our content is getting rendered here now. And to finish this off, let's add a title tag. And a container for the body content. Looks like that title tag needs to be styled. This demo app here is using Tailwind for that, so I'll just add a couple classes. All right, perfect. So now back in our CMS, let's create a site for this application. We'll just call it Laravel app. Hit save. We'll add a deployment target so that we can publish our files. We'll call it dev. And there's a lot of different ways to publish, a lot of different methods. Here we'll use the deployment host. This is a cool thing that lets us publish files to local dev servers from a remote CMS. So if I'm going to go into that content folder where I want the files to be published, first, if you didn't have this already installed, you need to install Node.js, and then Node.js, and then here you type npm install jsHarmony CMS host -g. That's going to install the jsHarmony CMS host program globally on your machine. And once it's installed, you'll be able to just run jsHarmony CMS host, put in the URL of your CMS server, and the location of where we want the files to be published, which I'm using dot to reference the current folder. It's asking for my CMS login to log into that server, and my password. And great, now it's connected. So back in our deployment target, if I hit browse, now my machine is going to come up as a deployment target. I'm going to select download remote templates via deployment host, because since this app is only running on my local machine, it's not publicly accessible. I'm also going to hit ignore certificate errors when downloading remote templates because I am using self-signed certificates for this demo app. For the URL prefix, this is the path to your content folder. So it's /content from the root of the site. And I'm going to set the page URL prefix override to / so that the page URLs will look like they're available out of the root of the site as opposed to out of that content folder. So with that set, I'm going to hit save. You can find all these integration instructions, by the way, on the jsHarmonyCMS.com site. If you go to Resources, Integrations, I'm going to go to PHP, Laravel. Here are the integration methods, and we're using the page object integration method. Next thing we'll need to do is, in order to get the CMS redirects working, the CMS redirects you can define under the Pages tab and the Redirects submenu. You can define custom redirects for your site. To get that feature working, I'll need to install the CMS redirects component to the site's SFTP. So I'm going to download that. I'll extract the files to my desktop. And now I will log into the site's SFTP, which you can get to on the Sites tab. I'm going to click Configure Site under that site I created for this Laravel app, and click the SFTP tab. And this is going to give me the SFTP URL, which I can then paste into FileZilla. My username is my CMS login. And now I'm connected here. And I'll drag that templates folder I just extracted. So here, it extracted two things. One, this JSH CMS redirects file is a component that takes those redirects and exports them to a JSON file. And then it added a line to my site config here to tell the CMS where to reference that redirects file. So now let's go ahead and integrate the CMS into the Laravel application. So first, we'll need to install the jsHarmony CMS SDK. So I'm going into my Laravel app, and I'll call Composer to install the SDK. All right, next, I'll add a config section specific to the CMS to my config/app.php file. So I'll go here, config, app.php, and then let's add a new section to the bottom, call it CMS. And for the config properties, I can go back to my deployment target, this dev deployment target we just created. And on the integration code tab, if you go to the PHP router integration code, you can just copy these three configuration settings here. I'm going to add a trailing comma, fix the indent. And one thing you'll need to watch out for is to update this content path. This should be the path to your CMS content folder. So this is our public/content folder. I just need to do /content because the document root is the public folder itself. So I'll save that. Next, here in our app service provider, we'll need to initialize the CMS. So we'll go to App, Providers, App Service Provider, and I'm going to add the use statement on top, and then this code that initializes the CMS. And this uses those settings from the config file we just defined. I'll save that. And then the final step is to update the web.php file. So I'll add this catch-all route. To the end of everything, even after the authentication, the login routes. And here I'll want this view to match the view that we defined. This should be the path to our template. The rest of that looks good. And then up here, we'll want to, for our template, we want to also pass the CMS page object. So the CMS page is going to let us load the editor script in our template. So I'll show you how that's going to work in just a minute. Finally, we need to add a use statement on top. So here we go. Now back in our site, we'll go back to configure the site, and let's add that template we just defined. We'll call it app, and we'll set the URL to be the URL to the template. And now if I go into dev mode, we'll see that this loaded, but the page isn't editable yet. So first thing we need to do is, back in our template, we need to add the editor script so that the editor is loaded if the template is accessed from the CMS. So to do that, we'll do CMS page. Just CMS page editor script. And now if we refresh, now the CMS editor is loaded when the page is accessed from the CMS. Now, two more things we need to do. We need to tell the CMS which tag has the title, which element has the title, so that's this one right here. And then we also need to tell the CMS which element has the body content. So that's that page content element. Now if I refresh, there we go. The title and the body are both editable. So at this point, why don't we check out the site and try to add a couple pages to it? We'll need to start out by cloning the master revision. So we'll call our new revision initial. And here we'll add a child page for a new About Us page. We'll use that app template. We can go in and edit the content. And if you fully configure it, then you can get the web snippets working, the components. If you add those to that site SFTP, you can get the header code, footer code, the SEO tags customizable via the CMS. So you have a lot of capability here to make this page editable. For now, we're just changing the body content. So I'm going to hit save. And to test this out, I'll also add a redirect. So we'll redirect the /about us page to just /about using a 302 redirect. That complete, let's deploy. Actually, there's one more step we need to do. which is here. When we were defining that remote page template, I'm going to go back to our page templates. We need to tell this CMS that it needs to export the template as JSON. So to do that, we need to go to config and then paste this code here. And this tells the CMS that instead of exporting as the resulting pages as HTML, it needs to export just the source elements of this as JSON. So now when I hit save, and if I publish, so to publish, I'm going to go to the Publish tab, click Add Deployment. I'm going to publish the currently checked out release. Looks like it's publishing. So if I go to the public and content folder, you can see it created this redirects file. It has that About Us redirect, and it created a file for that About page with the content as JSON. And if we actually browse to the page, go to /about. It's loading the page, but we still need a little bit more work to get the page content to actually render. So the final step here is we need to add the tags to our template so that it takes the CMS page content and renders it in the body. So to do that, back in our Blade template, there's example code here showing you how you can render the SEO title, the header and footer scripts, the custom JS that can be generated by the CMS. But here in our example, we're just doing the title and the content body. So I'll copy this title here and the content body. Hit save. And now if I refresh the About page, it gets rendered on Publish. And let's check if the redirect works. So yeah, that About Us is now doing a 302 redirect to the About page.